Hello, everyone. Today kicks off our focus on the Family Fridays. I'm sorry, and today I'm so excited because we have such a gem with us today who has a wealth of knowledge and is going to pour into our first generation families and students. We have Carmen Gonzalez, who is the director of a program here on campus that kind of spearheads some of the initiatives behind first generation and empowers those families with tools. And so I'm so excited for all that she has to share with you all today. And without further ado, I will bring her to the forefront to give you all the information that you need. So Carmen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, for that very kind introduction. I'm so happy to be able to have this conversation with families this morning about supporting first-generation college students on their academic journey. So as Randy was saying, I'm Carmen Gonzalez, and I direct the Lookout Scholars Program on campus. This is a program that supports first-generation college students. And I got into this career working with first-generation college students because I was a first-generation college student myself. I've done the work for about 15 years. So excited to have this conversation. And I know how important it is to families to be able to support their students through this journey. And congratulations to all of you. I know that students don't arrive in this educational journey at this point at UNC-Chapel Hill without your support along the way. So congratulations. I hope you've heard that from other folks because your support and being there alongside your student is one of the reasons why they're here today. So let's go ahead and get started. You are probably going to hear first-generation college students referred to as Carolina First at UNC-Chapel Hill. We're very proud of our students who are the first in their families to earn a bachelor's degree, and we want students to know how we are proud of them and how they contribute to our community, the diversity of our community, and just having a different lived experience that they can bring with them to campus. And so we really enjoy the fact that we have a very vibrant, diverse community of first-gen college students on campus. If you look at the numbers here, you can see that your student is not alone. So this was a snapshot taken from last academic year of the number of first-generation college students on campus. And so we actually had over 18.7%, almost 19% of our undergraduates identifying as first-generation college students. So the first in their family to earn a bachelor's degree is how we define that. And so you can see that that's a pretty significant number of students. So at times when your student might feel alone in this journey, at times when you might feel alone as a family, I just want to remind you that there's really a significant number of first-generation college students. And this kind of mirrors the national number. And so when we look nationally of the number of students who are the first in their family to earn a bachelor's degree, this is very similar. And so just let your students know and just remind yourselves that you're not alone in this journey, this new journey along the way of earning that bachelor's degree. So one of the reasons that I absolutely love working with first-generation college students is because of all of the unique strengths that our students bring to the table. And one of the important things along this journey is reminding our students of some of the strengths that they have. And so there's been some surveys and some characteristics looked at of first-generation college students. And some of these strengths you've probably been able to identify in your own student. And so resourcefulness, strategic thinking, self-reliance, practical realism, flexibility, persistence, positivity and hopefulness, self-confidence, insightfulness, compassion, gratitude, and balance are some of those strengths that we have identified in first-generation college students. And so what I want you to really think about are some of the individual strengths, and they aren't going to be exactly the same as this list of your student, because along the way in this college journey, there's going to be some self-doubt. And so as that starts to happen, really reminding and thinking about what are some of those strengths that you've witnessed, and how you know that they've gotten here to UNC-Chapel Hill, because they've used those strengths along the way to arrive here. So we know that family support is so important for success in college. And the fact that you are listening to this webinar, that you're interested and engaged in it, you're already halfway there, right? That family support is really crucial. So students knowing that you are championing their journey to college. And so this part is really, really critical in student success. And I don't want you to get too nervous about this part in terms of family support. I know my own family, since I was a first-generation college student, you know, they wanted to support me the best way they could, and sometimes they weren't always sure exactly what that would look like. But it's really looking like some of the things that you've done along the way to help them get to UNC-Chapel Hill. Being able to have conversations and open conversations about what their experience is like, and providing them that love and support that you have beforehand. And let me see, I'm going along in the slides. So it looks like we have a question about financial aid. So I think what I'll do, Tim, if you don't mind, I'll probably go through some of the slides, and then anything that we don't end up answering in the presentation, we'll go ahead and come back to, if that's okay. So let's go back to this. Now I'm running ahead in my, let's see if we can go ahead and, okay, so let's see if I can minimize the question and answers again so you all can see the screen okay. So supporting your student, there is going to be some feelings of guilt along the way. And so the work that I've done with first-generation college students, a lot of students feel a sense of guilt because they've had an opportunity that others in their family haven't necessarily had. And we're not talking about siblings, because that's a little bit different, right? So a student's still a first-generation college student, even if their sibling went and earned a bachelor's degree. And so there is this sense of guilt in having this opportunity and wanting to share this opportunity and new experiences with the rest of the family. And so a lot of times it's just being able to reassure your student that it's okay that they're having these new experiences and opportunities, and that this is something that you wanted for them. And I know right now that might seem like, you know, I don't really feel that they're gonna have these feelings of guilt, but it becomes real once they're on campus and they're like, wow, this is like a really incredible experience, and I want the rest of my family to have been able to experience this. And so just reminding that those feelings are probably going to come up along the way. Your student might not necessarily share them with you, so just kind of be aware that a lot of first-gen students start to have some of these feelings of guilt. And of course, a lot of change in student growth. And this is part of the reason that you probably wanted them to have this college experience, is to be able to, along the way, have these new experiences and growth and opportunity. But there is going to be a bit of a challenge there in terms of reconciling. So there's a very specific culture on any college campus, and sort of getting used to that campus culture and expectations sometimes is difficult at first in that transition, and being able to really navigate that for students and then go back from sort of this campus environment and culture that students are navigating and then go back home can sometimes be a lot to juggle, right? And so having certain expectations on campus and trying to figure out what those expectations are along the way. And we try to make it a smooth process for students at UNC to figure out what those expectations are. And I'll talk a little bit about those expectations in the conversation this morning. So let's go into that. So I think one of the things that we often see, whether a student is a first generation college student, whether they are a continuing generation student, that really that transition from high school to college can seem like a lot. And often in high school, students are used to being involved in a lot of after school activities, but the majority of their coursework is being done during the day when they're in classes and they're at school, or virtually, as we did in the spring semester. But in college, the huge transition and the academic rigor at UNC makes it much different. Students are only spending about 15 hours a week actually in the classroom, and the expectation is that students will be studying about 45 hours a week. And so when you think of that, it's really a full-time job in terms of the amount of hours a student is expected to study outside of the classroom. And that's a huge transition. And so there's still that expectation of involvement, engagement, and activities, but also that expectation of being able to study a lot outside of the classroom. And so a lot of times I think people see that, well, you have on your schedule that you're in class during this time, so aren't you free during this time? And often that's not the case for students. They are often feeling very overwhelmed by the amount that they're actually having to study outside of the classroom. And so we really encourage students to be able to take advantage of resources on campus like the Learning and Writing Center. Now, I'll tell you that our first generation college students are the first that don't want to take advantage of some of these resources, quite honestly, because they're worried that it makes it look like they aren't capable of doing well at UNC. But our students who are successful, they are the ones who really engage in these resources and use them and understand that study skills are going to have to change now that they're in college, and it's okay to use these resources. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that they don't have the academic ability to do it. It's just that things have changed now that they're at UNC-Chapel Hill. And so really encourage students when the academics get really difficult to not be too hard on themselves, and first gen students tend to be really hard on themselves in this moment. And they often don't want to worry family back home. And so even if they're struggling in classes, you probably aren't going to hear from them that it is something that they're struggling with, because they don't want you to worry. And so to really just have conversations with them, and very candid conversations, and understanding that the academic rigor is going to change, that's okay. And that's part of this learning process. And all students go through this. It isn't just our first gen students in terms of the academic rigor. I think the first gen students just don't realize that that process is part of the college experience, and that it's okay. So let's go back, and I'm still, hopefully you all cannot see this. Let me move it down so it's not blocking the screen. Okay, there we are. So one of the important things on college campuses is finding a mentor, and encouraging your student to find a mentor. They probably had either a high school counselor or a teacher or a coach in high school that was a really great mentor. And that's important. That's really important in college too, is to find that person that is a mentor. And there's ways that you can formally do this on campus. There's a couple different programs that first-gen college students can find faculty mentors or administrators who are mentors for first-generation college students. But there are also some peer mentoring programs, and those are important too, to have peers who've gone through the experience that students can talk to. Because along the way, there's transitions, there's different expectations each academic year. You know, the first year, it might be really just adjusting to college and figuring out what courses students like, how they're going to study for courses, figuring out new study habits for college classes. And then the second year, it might look like finding an internship or figuring out what sort of campus organization they're going to volunteer with. And so as a student builds each academic year, there's different activities, sort of different expectations that we have for students. And so being able to have a peer mentor they can talk to about this, being able to have a faculty member that has similar interests to them, maybe it's in the field that they want to study or the career that they want to go into, can really help students network, make connections on campus, and really sort of meet some of these expectations along their academic career. So mentorship is key, it's important, and it's really nice when you can have a mentor who looks like you, who was also a first-generation college student. So we have the Carolina First Advocates program, and these are folks, a lot of them themselves were first-generation college students, but they're faculty and staff on campus who want to support first-generation college students. So if you look up our Carolina First Advocates, there are people who want to mentor your students. And then the peer mentoring program, there's a couple different populations that they work with through the peer mentoring program out of the Center for Student Success. And that's the office that I'm housed in, that I work within. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that office a couple slides down. But there are these very formal ways that students can get connected, and then informal ways where they're meeting friends and faculty on campus that they have class with, that they can start to make some of these connections and these mentoring relationships. Care packages. So if you're ever wondering like what kind of things I send my student, our care packages of things, students love getting something that reminds them of home, especially at certain points in the semester where there might be a lot of homesickness. And so you can see that there's a couple different websites through the university that share a little bit more information about care packages and sending those to students, because it's always nice. And that's part of that parental support, right? Just being like, hey, you know, we're still thinking about you. And it can be really simple stuff. I find at some point in the semester, doesn't matter how good the food is in the residence hall or is not, that students always miss something from home, like a home cooked meal. And so just being aware that they really enjoy receiving care packages and get very excited about this. Involvement. So it's really important in terms of supporting your student, encouraging that involvement outside of the classroom. So much beyond earning that college degree and getting that bachelor's degree of a student's experience is that involvement outside of the classroom. And it helps them be able to find employment after college because they've either volunteered with an organization. It also helps students really identify what some of their interests may be. A lot of times students are pursuing a particular major or career path when they enter into the university. And, you know, studies across the board always show that students typically change their major many times before they really land on one that's a good fit academically, and that will help them get into a career that they're really going to excel in. And so part of being able to figure out that path for students is that involvement outside of the classroom, and part of being able to have opportunities post-graduation and opening doors and networking for jobs is through this involvement outside of the classroom. So whether it's volunteering or internships or research, those are all a crucial part of the college experience. And so really encouraging and supporting your student through that process of becoming involved and going out to the resources. There's so many resources on campus to help students get involved, but it's definitely a significant part of the college experience. And so we have a suite of videos to be able to highlight some of our first-gen students. DARON has since graduated from UNC, but he was a first-gen student a while ago. And his involvement on campus was really great. And so I want to share this video because DARON really exemplifies what we hope first-generation college students do in terms of their involvement, to have those opportunities post-graduation and really feel connected to campus. So the other thing about involvement is that it actually helps improve students' grades in the classroom. their self-confidence. And so while it might seem like this is just an additional thing, it also really helps improve other outcomes for students while they're in college. And so let's go ahead and see if I can minimize.
I recently graduated from UNC with a degree in mathematics. In terms of academics, I flipped around a lot. I was pre-med, then I was physics. I talked about environmental studies at one point. I was very much all over the place and kind of worried about, okay, when I'm graduating, when in senior year, I'm looking for a job, how's this gonna work out, how's this gonna turn out, kind of panicking about that. But really talking to people, talking to my mentors, they're very much willing to take a chance on you, willing to kind of devote their time to mentoring you, to helping you do amazing things. If they weren't there, I would have probably taken a completely different path. I'd probably be a completely different person.
I could talk about the Bonner program and these kids all day long. They're amazing kids.
We were actually the first Carolina Bonner leaders. Our program was all about service.
I am incredibly proud of DARON and the other Bonner leaders. I've seen each of them take on real challenges working with the community. All of the Bonner students come from low socioeconomic status. A lot of them actually become Bonner leaders because they want to give back to the kind of communities they came from.
DARON is a fantastic young man. What I was saying to him is you're walking into a world where the new normal is certain uncertainty. What do you need in your toolkit in order to thrive?
The Bonner program really got me interested in social justice. I'll be heading to Seattle, Washington for 5 months. Placed at the United Way of King County through the Bill Emerson National Hunger Fellowship, which is run through the Congressional Hunger Center. More of my work here will be with doing outreach, doing recruitment for volunteers, and talking to them, interacting with them, and seeing what they need, and seeing what services we can provide them. Seattle feels like a bigger Chapel Hill. There's more buildings, more businesses, more homeless people.
The state of Washington has the resources for each and every man, child that lives in this place.
People that really need the help mess it up for people who really need the help. What is your view on that, young man? I'm sitting next to a young black man who is out of college and ready to conquer the world.
I believe my experience at Carolina has without a doubt prepared me to make a difference in Seattle. Disagreement about what guidelines to put, and so if someone, Bonner, missions ambassadors, those programs really helped me learn how to talk to people, really learn how to connect with people. It has really provided me with the experience and the skills needed to hopefully address some of the issues that are going around in this city.
So there's a suite of some of these videos on the Student Success website, and you go to Carolina First and you'll find some of the resources that exist on campus for first generation college students. And I show this video to families today because it does highlight how having those experiences out of the classroom for DARON was really important. And if any of you noticed in the video, You know, DARON went on to work in nonprofit work in Seattle, and what I heard from the Bonner Leaders program recently is that he's now in New York working with a nonprofit. And so it's really interesting. Sometimes the degree that someone earns isn't necessarily seem like it's going to fit with a particular career path, but it's those activities and that involvement outside of the classroom that really makes those connections for students and makes it a really meaningful experience. And so I absolutely love the involvement in some of the things that DARON did on campus with admissions ambassadors and Bonner Leaders program. And so it just highlights how that can really open doors for students and help students be really successful in their time at Chapel Hill. So speaking of successful students, we know that successful college students interact with faculty on a regular basis. This can be daunting at first, going into office hours, not really knowing what to expect. But faculty really want to engage with students. They really want students to come to their office hours. And so this is a great opportunity for students to start making connections and asking questions. And even if they don't have a question about a class, they can go visit faculty during office hours just to learn more about how they could get involved potentially with research that the faculty member is doing. Or, you know, a lot of faculty members have connections in the campus community to be able to help students identify internships. So building those relationships with faculty early on is really important. Spend sufficient time studying. As you saw, the expectations from high school to college are very different in terms of the time and the work spent outside of the classroom. And I think that's always a huge transition for students. So just reminding students that successful students really take the time to do that. And then participating in extracurricular activities, not only to do that networking and to build to really identify some interests, but being able to have an outlet to have fun and really being able to, with some of the stress of college, have ways that students can be engaged in some fun things that they're interested in outside of the classroom. And so utilizing on-campus student services is very crucial to the college experience. Sometimes when students first start, they're not so sure that they want to use these services, but we know that successful students engage in the Writing and Learning Center and take advantage of university career services and some of the other services that exist on campus. Specific programs and supports for first-generation college students on campus include some of our transition programs. So right now, your student might be part of the Summer Bridge program where students are on campus while taking classes in the summer on campus virtually this summer because of the environment that we're in right now with COVID-19. But also peer mentoring, helping with the transition to college, and having someone who's gone through it in a previous year can really help students when they start out on their path. Tri Alpha is an honor society for first-generation college students. So after your student's been at UNC for a couple semesters and has earned a GPA, they can apply to be in the Tri Alpha Honor Society. And so that's a unique opportunity for our first-generation college students to be part of this National Honor Society. I had mentioned Carolina First Advocates earlier, and those are the faculty and staff that are trained and want to work with and support first-generation college students. And then we have a couple other supports. There's a first-generation student organization on campus. And so for students who want to be socially active with other first-generation college students, this is a great outlet. And a lot of students I find really like that community of being able to relate to someone else who's a first-generation college student and have a similar experience. And then there's learning communities you might have heard of in housing. There's a first-generation residential learning program that your student might be a part of. And then the program that I direct, the Lookout Scholars Program. And that's a first-generation community where students are taking classes together with other first-generation college students and involved in activities. We have a small cohort in the Lookout Scholars Program. I have 40 students who are coming into the entering class. And so you might have heard of the Lookout Scholars Program. Your student might be a part of my program coming into the fall. They would have applied for it over the summer because it's by application and it's competitive. So some of the campus resources that we really encourage students to take advantage of, and that's critical to their success and part of their college experience. The Center for Student Success, the office I work in, has a lot of really great resources. So the Learning and Writing Center, where students can receive tutoring, they can go into academic coaching, and academic coaching are one-on-one appointments to talk about if a student does want to work on a particular study habit, or if they're struggling with time management in this new environment. This is a great resource. And so I'm probably reiterating some of the resources you've learned about on campus, but it's so important, you know, if your student calls home and they are worried about a particular class or how they're managing their time, to remind them that these things exist for them. So we also have peer mentoring out of my office for the Center for Student Success, transfer student support as well. And of course, the first generation student support. And so every academic year, we try to host celebrations and social events to bring the first generation community together. And that's part of the work that's done outside of my office. And then we usually do communications to students. If there's an internship or an opportunity that we want to share out to first gen students, we often do that through an email listserv for all of our students. And then the Bridge program is also part of the Center for Student Success. So that's a summer program where students are enrolled in classes this summer. And so if your student is a part of this, they're probably participating in it right now. And then Student Life and Leadership. This is the office out of which all of the many student organizations that exist on campus. And so as your student is sort of identifying some of those outside interests and extracurricular involvement, this will be a critical organization and resource. Academic advising, really important for students to have a relationship with an academic advisor, to stay on track with classes, and just to have that person to talk to about their class schedule. University Career Services, the same. University Career Services also offers major exploration. And so I think often students don't realize the depth of resources through career services, and it's just incredible. And so I know this is a lot. There's a lot of resources on campus. And so you'll probably have to go back to the website and do some search if you're ever like wanting to go back and reference these different resources. But almost anything out there that your student might ask you about, there is a resource on campus. And so just reminding them that there's stuff that exists, encouraging them along the way that they can do it, is really important. Undergraduate research is another really great resource. So we actually have an office on campus that helps connect students with undergraduate research, since that's a critical part of the college experience. All right, so I know that we've had questions coming in, and I'm sure they're excellent ones. And going back to the financial aid question that Tim had posed, you know, I think it's always important that students, speaking of mentorship and finding people on campus, find that like the folks in financial aid, the people in financial aid, to sort of have that resource or someone that a student can always go talk to and ask questions. There's really great people over in the Office of Financial Aid. So when will you hear from the financial aid office? So there should be a link if you go into the Connect Carolina account that your student has set up. They should be able by this point to see what their financial aid package looks like. So if everything has been submitted, they should be able to look at that. But you can go on, financial aid has hours where you can talk to folks and do like sort of, they used to have like on-campus virtual like walk-in hours, but now those are probably virtual hours because everything's moved virtually for the summer. And so you can connect with someone in financial aid and ask real specifically, like any questions you might have. I know that there often are a lot of financial aid questions because that process can be daunting to initially navigate. But making a friend in the financial aid office and having a counselor that your student can go meet with can really help demystify some of the things around financial aid. But as long as everything is turned in, you should be able to go into Connect Carolina and see what that financial aid package is going to look like. And that's the account that your student has where they're going to see and register for their courses in Connect Carolina. And so it's just really the place that holds a lot of information for students. So you should be able to see that there. And then academic advisors, they are assigned over the summer. And so, you know, even though an academic advisor might be assigned to a student, this is a great question, Christy, a student can see any academic advisor. So we actually encourage students, there's certain academic advisors for certain fields of study. So if a student plans on going into a science field or a math field or anything like that, a student can go see any of the advisors that specialize in those types of fields, and they can really find the advisor that's a good fit for them, someone that they feel like they've built rapport with, that they've connected with. And so even though there's going to be someone that's listed or assigned to your student as their advisor, they can actually go see any advisor that they want to build a relationship with on campus. And so that's really nice. They have one that's initially assigned that they can email questions to, that they can immediately connect with before they're even on campus. But then once your student's on campus and they start to like be able to connect with advisors, they can really see and choose and select the advisor that they want to meet with. So having that flexibility can be really, really nice for students. Well, I appreciate the questions. Those were excellent questions. And I know that navigating this process and this college journey can at times seem overwhelming, but just remember like those really fundamental things in terms of, you know, the love and support you've provided for your student along the way to help them arrive at Carolina is what's going to work throughout their time in college. And I know that really, you know, the fact that you are championing their success by being part of this webinar and watching it is, you know, just really demonstrating that care and love and support that you want to provide for them. So thanks so much. And I think Brandy might sign us off, or Justin along the way.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I really appreciate it. Definitely a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm so thankful for all the information that you're able to provide. And I know our families are really appreciative of all that you have poured out today. Thank you everyone who was able to join us. As I mentioned, on Fridays, we're going to be focused on the family. And so we definitely want to hear from you about topics that are important and pertinent to your student success and pertinent to your transition as you come to Carolina. So let us know what topics you would like to see covered this summer. And we look forward to seeing you throughout the duration of this webinar series. So thank you so much. Thanks, Carmen.
Thank you.